I'd like to turn on my microphone. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Madison School Board to order. Should we call the roll, please?
President Holcomb.
Here.
Vice President Gresham.
Here.
Member Chasse.
Here.
Member Spear.
Here.
Member Thompson.
Present.
All are present.
Thank you. Dr. Lomley, would you like to lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any items on the agenda that any member of the board or staff would like to move or change? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Move by Ms. Grissom, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Please vote. That passes unanimously. Before going any further, I do want to remind everyone to please do silence or turn off your cell phones. I remember that because I have to do it every time. That brings us to call for an executive session. Is there any reason to have an executive session? Seeing none, that moves us to communications and announcements. Superintendent's report, Dr. Garrett.
Thank you, Board President. I have just a message chocked full of good news today. So first, I want to thank the Madison #1 Orchestra led by Miss Enzor. They were unbelievably talented. It was one of the highlights of my week. I was truly moved. The talent is incredible. I also want to mention that it's National School Counseling Week this week. Since COVID, we have prioritized both counselors and social workers at each of our 8 sites, and every time I visit a site, they are mentioned. So we truly appreciate our school counselors. They not only support our students, they support our staff. We appreciate everything you do every day for us. I am pleased to share that the Madison Elementary School District has been awarded a TSI grant in the amount of $37,500. This supports our school integrated action plans and will also support our strategic plan with a focus on struggling subgroups to target intervention. So we're very excited about that under Ed Services. Thank you for applying for that grant. I want to it might be a little early, but I want to congratulate Simus Elementary School. They had an international baccalaureate visit, and it was to look at their primary years program. And they had evaluators from England and Germany via Zoom. And they were very impressed. It was their 5-year reauthorization visit. It takes a tremendous amount of work, and Melissa Power has organized all the stakeholder groups that provided input to certify them. The process was positive. We do have to wait 45 days for the official word, but we feel very, very positive. Incredible work, Principal and Principal Webb for the Simus School. I appreciate them so much. Madison #1 community, you are cordially invited tomorrow night to a community forum to give input on the next principal selected for #1. It is in this room tomorrow at 5 p.m. Please join us to help provide some input into this valuable process and important decision. When the community forum will be going on, there will also be a school stakeholder interview process. So we will put our 3 finalists through different selection processes, gather all that feedback, and make a recommendation to this governing board. The Phoenix Symphony presented a master class to our students, and this weekend is Ballet Arizona. These are new partnerships for the Madison Center for the Arts, and we are so excited about this new performance partnership and hope we can continue it into the future. They have loved our facility, apparently, and it's going very, very well, and attendance was great for the symphony. Phoenix Suns Night is March 8th. It's going to be a Madison Family Fun Night. So if you can visit the Madison Education website and go under events, you can join the Suns Fun and see some basketball and also support the foundation. So it's, a double win there. This is really important. Ashley Bowman is our teacher mentor, and she has just achieved national board certification. This is a tremendous accomplishment for teachers. I truly believe in this process. It's one where they really have to reflect on their craft, hone their craft, and really do some self-evaluation work on every aspect of the teaching profession. So we really want to congratulate Ashley, and we will be recognizing her at our winter celebration event that's coming up soon. Madison was highlighted on AZ Family Pay It Forward. We had one of our own crossing guards nominate another crossing guard at Madison Traditional Academy, and Mr. Tim Mueller, he's retired. He said he was in public service his whole life, and he just does this to give back. He's been with us for 5 years. The kids call him Mr. Tim, and we can show you the clip if anyone is interested, because you get to see him get $500 cash from his coworker. Who doesn't want to give their favorite colleague $500 cash? So it was a great program, and it was really fun to see him recognized. We will be having our fall and winter recognition at the next board meeting, so I'll go over that when we talk about future events. I just want to say that one of my favorite parts of my job has been doing the school visits. I've had some board members join me recently, and that I get to go to every school every month. I'm getting to know each classroom, the teachers, the content they teach, and I've seen some really spectacular lessons, engaging students, and frankly, just caring adults in and outside the classroom. So thanks to the Madison staff for all of their work, and for just inviting me so warmly into your rooms, cafeteria, classrooms, and schools. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. That brings us to the board member reports. Let's do a little different. Ms. Spear, would you like to start off?
Mixing it up. Thank you. I really don't have much to report on my end, except to share gratitude for everything that Dr. Guerin shared. Congratulations to Ms. Bowman. Being nationally board certified is a very big deal. It is a tremendous amount of work, and for a teacher in this day and age to take on that process is to be commended and recognized for sure. So congratulations to Ms. Bowman. And also I wanted to say thank you to Ms. Enzor and her students. That was an incredible performance. I don't know much about strings. I am not a musically talented individual, but I do know when it's really good, and that was really good. So congratulations to the students and to Ms. Enzor. And also thank you to Ms. Marshall and your team for applying for those grants. It takes a lot of time to apply for these grants, and some of the grant applications are laborious at best. And I just wanted to share with the public that Madison staff applies for grants whenever possible to augment the budget and to support our staff and our students and our families. And so I just wanted to acknowledge the hard work that goes into applying for all of those grants. And that there were so many other things. I was trying to keep notes, but I'm sure I missed some things. So my apologies for not being able to keep up with all of the good news. That's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham.
Confusing. Okay, thank you. Yes, once again, congratulations to all our good news the last couple weeks. And thank you for number one for coming. Ms. Enzor does an amazing job. We are so lucky to have that program. One of my own children, actually two of them, had her, I think, almost every year at number one, and one of them still plays. So it's just, they, like Ms. Spear said, they're really good, and I don't know how she does it, but yeah, and I look forward to, I'm going to join Dr. Guerin on some of the school visits coming up, and I'm going to try to get to the student performance of Chasse, which is all weekend, so make sure, that looks like a really awesome ballet performance. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I turn my mic off. Ms. Chasse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you for sending that video with Mr. Tim. I think the thing that made me a little verklempt is that when he received the money, he said, "I'm probably just going to spend it on the school." And I thought, wow, what an amazing individual. Wanted to mention that I was at the Arizona Music Educators Association conference last Friday and Saturday, and it was the first time that we've been in person since the pandemic. So it was good to see some Madison teachers attend. Would love to see all Madison music educators attend this conference. Really helps to, I think, reinvigorate them, gives them networking opportunities. One thing that I took away in talking to a number of the elementary and middle school teachers was that the pandemic really did a number on our arts programming because, in a choir or an orchestra or in a band, if you can't recruit and you don't have enough brass or enough bass or enough tenors, things start to fall apart quickly. And in talking to many of our rural schools, the arts programming is falling apart at the seams. And to see what we saw tonight, the number of participants, the high quality, they've obviously been playing together for a while, I think reinforces how much our commitment to the performing arts. We demonstrate that every day and obviously tonight, and it's not the case everywhere. So we really need to appreciate that. It's a big deal. Wanted to invite anyone to join me. My mom and I are going to see opening night of Giselle. I'm a big Ballet Arizona fan, and to be able to drive 5 minutes as opposed to downtown is making me giddy. So, and I don't know if you've ever been to a Ballet Arizona performance. We have one of the best ballets in the country. I really encourage you. It's right in our backyard, and Giselle is a beautiful ballet. Thanks.
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. In addition to echoing all of, just the joy in all the wonderful things that have happened the last couple weeks. Just want to bring up a few things. First of all, I understand that the school safety grants are up again from the Department of Education. At first, I was disappointed to hear that the superintendent had limited those only to SROs, but I understand that his thinking has become a little more enlightened, and that there'll be an opportunity, maybe as a as a secondary ask, but to include counselors in those. And I think that's so important, not just to our district, but to students really across the state. So just want to say I'm encouraged by that news and hope we can continue to pay for some of the support staff and counselors that we have here at Madison through those grants. Second, earlier today, the House passed the first of the AEL bills, which I'm really thankful for. That's so meaningful for us and for schools across the state. I hope the Senate will take action quickly, because I know there are other school districts, unlike us, who will have difficulty just in a couple of weeks. We're on a sound financial footing and we'll be okay. But I really don't want to have those conversations when it's just a quick vote that can take care of these issues. So thank the House and our legislators for taking care of that. I also want to thank the superintendent for allowing me to join her on some of these school visits. It has been such a joy to visit so far Camel View, Rose Lane, and today Park. It's great to see how engaged our students are, to see the signature programs. We had a visit with one art teacher this week who was over the moon about the resources that she got from a foundation grant and just how meaningful it was. She was bursting at the seams. She was so excited to tell us about what her students were doing. So it's really been fantastic to be able to do that. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I won't, it's been a great report from the superintendent and all through the board. I won't repeat all that. The one thing I did, and it really strikes me, you can see the difference when kids or any performer goes from just doing the notes or going through it, and they actually start playing music. And that's what we saw there, was really music, and it was full-bodied. Some of the kids it was full-body, and you could really feel it. And that's what makes it really moving. I also wanted to point out, too, is the partnerships that we have in the Madison. This is part of the maturation of that program. And something that really struck me is because of our partnerships with the symphony and the ballet, we're now on the new, we're now getting advertised on NPR and that too, because they're advertising those performances at the Madison. And for the first time, I went to Gamage, and they had the on stage that they pass out, and it has the calendar. We're now on the calendar because of our partnerships with the symphony and the ballet, and I'm looking forward to going to the master class. I'm hopefully going to be able to make that, but also went to the symphony. It's the first time I've been to the symphony in a long time, and I talked to some of the symphony executives who were out in the lobby and people there, and they are ecstatic about the Madison. They said, you know, it's so much easier to go there instead of downtown. They said they said we'll have trouble getting some people back down to Symphony Hall because it's also more intimate, you know, that is a huge step forward. Not just the partnerships for the performances, but the bringing the people in too. It was and it was quite enjoyable. It was a little weird watching all those old folks get down to the 80s music, but you know, you get past that. It was still a lot of fun. Any event, with that brings us to the consent agenda. Is there any item that any member of the board or staff wants to take off the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Moved by Ms. Chasse, seconded by Ms. Spear. Please vote. And the consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us down to the calls to the public. Do we have any calls to the public?
We do not have any calls to public.
Okay, having no calls to the public, that brings us to our information items. First one up is budget update. Dr. Garrett.
President Holcomb, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guests, I'd like to introduce Deputy Superintendent Lori Garvey, who will give us a budget update. As Board Member Thompson so eloquently stated, that we are in solid footing in Madison, and it is because of the leadership of Ms. Garvey and her department. Thank you, Ms. Garvey.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board and cabinet. We are going to take a look at our projected budget for next year because it is certainly that time where we are deep in the throes of planning and working with our different committees. So, but whenever we look at the budget, we look at things currently that could have an impact on the budget, as well as we look at some short-term and long-term planning to make sure that we stay fiscally sound as we move through and determine what can be committed in the budget. So certainly, as you all know and was mentioned tonight, the aggregate expenditure limit, AEL, has been on all of our minds these past few months. There was a motion and it did pass the House. So as Mrs. Thompson said, we're waiting to see when it will pass the Senate, hopefully, so that this can be put behind us for this year. We are looking at a one-time fix again, so we may be facing it again next year, but we'll handle that when we get there. But as you can see, for us, it would have been a $7.5 million reduction to this year's budget. So that is why it was so important, as we have all of our discussions with our different groups, that they understand that we can't move forward until that is settled. The next thing that we look at is our non-permanent funding. So what funding do we have that might sunset so that do we have positions? What are tied to those funds? So we know if we need to absorb some of those expenditures into our maintenance and operations budget. So as we go through these, we have our results-based funding. The end of that program, and it is likened to a state grant, ends this June of 23. Madison received $651,000 this year. Most of it is, or I should say all of it actually is in positions out there. You can see we have interventionists at the elementary schools and MTA, and then our kindergarten paraprofessionals. We have safety grants that are also coming to an end on this June. And again, as Mrs. Thompson pointed out, at first these grants weren't going to continue allowing these two groups to be submitted for just SROs, but it has broadened again to include those. So Ms. Marshall and her team will be submitting those grants so that hopefully we can get those covered, but we are still keeping them in our mind. How are we going to cover this if this grant wouldn't come to fruition? We're also looking at our ESSER $3. Now that's another year out, so we have one more year of ESSER funding left. It was it's not an annual allocation. It was a one-time allocation a year and a half, 2 years ago that we have spaced out and continued so that we can fund ongoing operations. And in there, we also do have two positions. We have the SEAL coordinator and the instructional coach. And together, that's about $200,000. And then out there a little bit further on the horizon, we do have our Prop 123, which was part of settling the lawsuit against Prop 301. And it's allocating additional state trust monies that are made off state fund money, state trust land monies back to the districts. And Madison's portion of that, it's based on your student count, is $350,000. So just keeping that in mind further down the road, but it's just important to keep in our mind. So then with that, we transition to what do we know or what do we think might happen in next year's budget? Well, the one thing that I believe we can count on is the 2% in inflation, because there is a statute out there that says we, school districts will receive the lesser of 2% or inflation. We know inflation is well over 2%, so we would receive the 2%, which is $95.50 for each weighted student count. And at this moment, that's really all that we have any knowledge of or how things are going. So as we roll that forward to our projected budget, we did have an ADM decrease this year of 29, but that's already accounted for, so we don't have to reduce next year for that. Our base support level, that 2% inflation, the district will receive an additional $661,000 in revenue. And this other line here, this uncommitted budget balance carry forward. So we look at how much do we have in carry forward that we haven't spent in our budget that we could use for ongoing expenses. So you can see here off to the right, our projected budget balance carry forward is $2.8 million, but we have set aside, and the board approved to set aside the $1,016,000 for the Parity study to help address what comes up in that. So that leaves us with almost $1.8 million. And then of that, looking at that, it is best practice to be somewhere around 3 to 4% of a budget balance carry forward, especially in this environment of current year funding. So if we're reduced, then you have to reduce your budget, or if something, other funding source goes away, you have that contingency fund to fall on. So if we were to use $749,000, we would be left with a projected budget balance of just a little bit over $1 million, which is 3%. So that leaves us with $1.4 million that we can look at allocating as we go forward into next year. Then what we look at is, well, what are our budget commitments for next year? What are things that we have to fund that we know of that aren't currently funded in this year's? So the first thing we look at is our teacher staffing, and we do the roll-up. And between the roll-up and additional state requirements for our English language learners, and so that's the requirement. So the 3 EL is that due to that requirement, we would be adding 3 English language instructors across the district. The 4 resource teachers, we are, as you know, working towards an inclusion to mainstream some of our special ed population. And as we do that, to include them and provide the supports that they would need to go into classrooms, gen ed classrooms, we would need 4 resource teachers. And then just the process of rolling up students from kindergarten to 1st or 5th to 6th, as the student-teacher ratios change, the number of teachers changes depending on the grade levels where the students are. So we would need 4 to cover difference in where the grade levels of the students are. Those 11 teachers are $858,000. That does include all salaries and benefits. Medical insurance, it's just a smidge too early for us to know exactly where this is going. We do start at 10%. Last year we saw 2.5%, which was unbelievable. But, you know, it would be nice to see it there again next year, but for planning purposes at this time, it's 10%, which is $344,000. We should know that number around March 1st. They release the numbers like February 28th or March 1st. It's always by March 1st. So we will know that. And then the state retirement contribution for the employer as well as the employee, it's an even amount for both, is going up just a little bit at a cost of $17,700 to the district. When you take all of those three costs as they are, the net increase in expenditures is 1.2 million, leaving us with just under 200,000 as we look at going forward for salary increases or anything else that we may need. Okay, as you know, Budget Advisory Committee is out there, and IBN, the interest-based negotiation team, is also talking about budget priorities and what they see to bring forward. So I just wanted to let you know that what Budget Advisory is looking at. They took into account the board direction when we had a prior budget conversation. I will have to say that we have some new community members and parent members, additions to our, and the conversations are so good and so robust, and they're just, the input this year is phenomenal. They would of course like to address parity and decompression because that is just an ongoing, we knew that we had that $1 million set aside, so they would like to continue on that road. They're very interested in a cost of living increase, a lot of discussion around that. When we look at maintaining student supports, that's been a topic out there as we even see the presentations from the schools. And with that, it could be the counselors and the social workers, the interventionists, positions that we have out there that might be going, that could possibly go away if the funding isn't there, but that very, very strong desire to continue those positions. There's talk out there about the targeted academic supports, academic and behavioral. I can tell you on this one, they're talking about, are there schools due to their sheer size that maybe require additional assistance, whether that be an additional teacher on assignment or a dean of students? It's something that they're talking about. And in the maintaining student supports, I do want to say too, they're talking about, currently we have a permanent sub at every middle school, but including that permanent sub at each elementary school. And there was also conversation of, you know, about class size and how can we support the teachers, and looking at perhaps a classroom aide at each campus just to help have them work with small groups to lower class size certain periods during the day or certain times. So those are things that they've been having a lot of great conversation about. And of course, we look at long-term sustainability and look to come to the board probably with a phased approach depending on how much budget is out there. And then just as we review the options, in case anybody was interested, a 1% salary increase is $322,000. You can see the instructional aide is $28,000, a teacher is $78,000, and a permanent guest teacher is $47,000. So we're looking at these funds and we're trying to decide how to prioritize them, and hoping that when the state budget is done, we will see a little bit more than the 2% come our way so that we can fund the priorities of the Budget Advisory Committee and IBN, some combination that Dr. Guerin would bring forth. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Ms. Chasse.
Just for absolute clarity's sake, I just wanted to make sure that I was absolutely clear that the increase in projected expenditures for FY '23-24 do not include at this time the positions that are funded by results-based funding and the safety grants right now. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So we'd have to fill those
they do
in
not.
if that funding was not renewed, essentially.
Yes, they do not.
Thank you.
Ms. Gresham.
I just have a quick comment. Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Garvey, and everything you do. And I'll just want to express my appreciation that we're still doing the budget advisory, because we didn't always have that. And I think it's just really good that we are continuing to do so, and you know, continuing our transparency and our everyone's you know, working together. So thank you. That's it.
Ms. Spear.
Thank you so much, Ms. Garvey, for your presentation. With regards to, and I didn't have a chance to ask this question previously, so I realized that this might be something that you're just talking about. But in terms, like, one of the things that I hear from some parents is that with school safety grants, the question as to whether it's an SRO versus a counselor. This can be a very hot topic. One of the things that I know we've had trouble in the past is actually finding SROs. Even if we wanted to hire an SRO, it's very difficult to find anyone to hire. Is that still the case? Okay.
Board Member Spear, there's a tremendous shortage with the Phoenix Police Department, and so it's just been challenging for school districts with grants.
Thank you for clarifying that for me and then also for anyone who is watching. Because I think that it is really important for context to be added to this conversation. That our administrators and our parents know what is best for our schools, and counselors are that right now. So I just wanted to make that point and also address the questions that I've been asked by some parents. Thank you.
One thing I wanted to point out, again, thank you. We are in this position in large part because of the stewardship, Ms. Garvey and her staff, and actually everybody on the executive team. That's been really good. And I really want our community to understand how robust the input is that we get from the IBN, interest-based negotiations, which is with the staff, but then the budget advisory, which was added a while back, that really does help inform the board and inform us as to what really can be effective, how we can really use what monies we have, or if we need to make cuts, where can we try to do that the best. I think that's something that Madison would be very proud on both of those levels. And the people who serve on that too, in my experience, really do reach out, not for personal interest, but really try to make things better. And actually I've seen people make sacrifices on their own to help other groups because that was the right thing to do. So I think that's something this community should be very proud of. And thank you for all you've done. With that, we'll go on to the next item, which is the trade-up program. Dr. Guerin.
President Holcomb, I'm pleased to have Deputy Superintendent Garvey introduce the trade-up program at Park, and we have some special guests tonight.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Guerin. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Guerin, and Cabinet. The trade-up program has been at Madison Park for several years, and it's just done amazing things for our students and the excitement that they have around it. And so I'm very pleased tonight that we actually have Taylor Perkins here from Chasse Building Team and the Trade Up Program, and Miss Becky Galindo from Madison Park to talk about the program and its impact on the school.
And Principal Rodriguez. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So, Building the Future Trade and Occupation Opportunities, formerly known as Cactus, Careers in Architecture, Construction, and Trades, Uplifting Students, which was established in 2018. Oh, thank you. All right, here we go. All right. So Madison and Chasse Building Team, in partnership with Chasse Building Team, the construction group that is rebuilding Madison Park, our middle school students are participating in the trade-up program. Students meet once a week from 4 to 5:30 for a free 21-week activity program. Our trade-up, it is a 6-month program. It provides students with hands-on experience with masonry, electrical plumbing, HVAC, carpentry, drywall, roofing, and other trades. Opportunities also include field trips and interactive training modules. All right.
Hello, everybody. So I'm sure we all know that labor shortages are affecting most of us, and construction is no exception. We're seeing this huge gap in trade professionals. And that's where Trade Up was born, is to expose these students to these career pathways that are respected. The trades are respected. It is a great path for these students. President Holcomb can attest to that because he's one of our founding members. So it's really to expose these students professions that they may not be familiar with. And if they're passionate about it, this is an opportunity for them to come and learn about all the different trades and construction pathways out there. So this is just kind of what I alluded to, the gap we're seeing. It's just going to get bigger. And so we're taking action now, exposing these middle school students to these pathways, because by the time they get to high school, we're noticing it's a little too late. I mean, it's not late, but it's just they could have been exposed to all these things and had opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have known about until they got to high school. So we're trying to bridge that gap a little bit by, exploring different options for these students. And then students can continue learning in high school. So this is just, we're giving them opportunities to explore all the different trades so that when they get to high school, they can go to a WestMech or an EVIT, depending on where they go to school, and continue that career path if they so choose. And then I just wanted to give a little shout out. Thanks for having me to represent Trade Up. I know that we're very grateful to be a part of this journey for these students and this exploration for them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Gresham?
Just a quick comment. Thank you both for being here. That's okay. We're coming back.
You are not excused. You need to say that.
Yeah, just thank you for being here. And it is nice to see this, as you mentioned, in middle school, because a lot of the high schools have these types of programs. But for us to have it in middle school so early is really cool. And hopefully we'll get to expand it to some of our other middle schools too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kazi?
Thanks. So my kids learned how to build through Habitat for the Humanity, and then more ministries. And then also there's another program I know down in Puerto Penasco that does similar a little bit more challenging construction for homes. Have you thought about any, because I know that as you know, there are fewer churches who are able to partner with, specifically with Habitat. Are there connections that could be made with this program that give students kind of a continued pathway, and also an opportunity to volunteer, which, provides some additional benefits? I don't know if you've ever thought about that, if there's any way to, make those connections at all.
Absolutely. I know Trade Up and the board have been working on making those further connections, and we're kind of stuck in the trades, so trying to get all different types of trades coming in and teaching them. Like today, they had a plumbing activity, and we had K-Corp come in, and they had a mock wall with a toilet and a sink, and they were able to see the whole back end of that wall and see how the plumbing is connected. But certainly, we would love to expand that to make those bigger connections, whether it be with a local business partner. But I know that the board is comprised of a lot of dedicated business professionals that aren't even in construction. So absolutely, thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I have always felt very strongly that career and college education needs to start in middle school, because the classes students take in middle school often have a real bearing on what they take in high school, and then the career path potentially as they think about college or directly into a career. So this is a really, I think, a valuable, needed program. So thanks for all your great work on it.
Thank you.
Ms. Thompson?
I just also want to reiterate my thanks for this. I think that there are not a lot of middle schools that have these types of programs, and the state for a long time has been focused on getting kids to get their action plans together for high school. But if you're not exposed to a lot of different things, you're not going to know what your options are before you start high school. So thanks for what you're doing, and deeply appreciate your commitment to our students.
Well, one of the things that's important to talk about the partnership, two things that are important about the trade-up program is it is really to try to feed and get more kids to take advantage of the other programs that are available and being that resource that way. The other thing that is important is to reach out to the parents, is to try to teach the parents that construction is a good career path. I believe very strongly in kids going to college, getting as much education as possible, but not every kid will go to college. And I think we do a disservice by saying every kid has to go to college to get a career. There's a lot of construction. Every kid should have the opportunity and get the skills necessary to do it. But construction is can be a very good path through college or not. I can say my son is a perfect example. He was a National Merit Scholar who didn't like college, and he is now a journeyman electrician. And as soon as he got his journeyman's card, he is now teaching electrician because of his math skills that made him a National Merit Scholar. He's now using that in construction and enjoying it a great deal. So,
Awesome.
one thing I also want to note, I noticed the pictures that we're talking to. The other thing that is we have a lot of girls participating in it, and as you can see, a lot of the construction, they get to see that there are professional women in the construction trade, and that is a good path for them as well.
Indeed.
Yeah, Ms. Spear.
Thank you so much. I'm a huge fan of this program, and I wish we had it at every one of our middle schools. I think that there is such a value to demonstrate the real-world application of math. Middle schoolers love to talk about how they hate math, and at least some of the ones I've been around. And and this is a stellar opportunity for them to get that spark of what might be, and also to reinforce the importance of math and critical thinking and training your brain in that way. One of the things I would love to hear from, because they are the end users, our students, I would love to see a survey or feedback from them on what they found valuable from the program without adding to work for you. But I think that would go a long ways towards future support of the program and building excitement. And I think it would be great to be able to read some of their comments.
Our board has been focusing on trying to apply for grants, and one of the big things is having a questionnaire for those students to fill out before and after, so that you can compare what they knew, what they learned throughout the program. So it's something we're definitely working on and trying to be a little bit more consistent with. So we will be sure to share.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
There has been an interest from the construction community of actually taking this nationally and doing it. The issue is trying to develop, Madison has been the pilot area to see how you can ramp this up to be able to do it, because it gets the trades in the schools, which means you have to coordinate with the trades, and that's been one of the issues, is figuring out how you can make this scalable. And
we're very fortunate to have Park be so consistent and helpful, and Mr. Hoy, who is our teacher that stays after school to help facilitate the program. So they're great partners in this, so thank you.
It's been wonderful, thank you.
I would like board members to be able to, because I could really use some of these skills. So if you could let any of us do it, I would love to.
every Tuesday.
I'm in.
Board Member Gresham, we can add it to the calendar, because I'm especially interested to see behind the wall and the plumbing.
I love
I
it,
am.
yes.
That's very interesting to me.
Cool.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to our action items. The first one is the 2023-24 Certified Teachers Salary Schedule. Dr. Guerin.
President Holcomb, members of the board, cabinet, and guests, the 3 action items are all Dr. Lomely, so I'm going to turn it over to her to talk about the teacher's certified salary schedule.
Thank you, Dr. Guerin. Mr. President, members of the board, cabinet, we're bringing forward the teacher certified salary range and recommend this approval. The salary range is based on this year's salary because we have not yet completed our budget advisory and IBN process. So we need the salary ranges to be approved so that we can issue teacher contracts.
Any questions, comments on that? If not, one thing that's important is it is important to the district. One of the things we've adopted is trying to get these contracts out as early as possible. And it helps us have an advantage in retaining teachers and attracting new teachers as well. Because so I think this is important to have this done now. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the certified salary schedule. Huh?
It appears that they've already been voted on, but they have not been voted on, so if we can take a voice vote so that
Oh, it looks like, well, it's a consent agenda that's up here. Yes.
we will fix that on the back end. I apologize about that, but a voice vote will.
We can do a voice vote, but first we need a motion to vote upon.
Move that we approve the 2023-24 certified teacher salary schedule as presented.
Second.
I think Ms. Thompson, that's who I heard. So it was moved by Ms. Spear, seconded by Ms. Thompson. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. That passes unanimously. That brings us next to the certified teacher contract template.
We have the same problem on this one, too.
No. Dr. Can I bypass you? Yeah, I'll go straight to the source. I know it's all about you, but we'll go straight over here. Dr. Lomely.
Mr. President, members of the board, cabinet, we are requesting that you approve the certified teacher contract template. This template has been reviewed by legal, and this is necessary so that we can issue contracts.
Any comments or questions? I do have one quick just clarification. Have there been any changes from the template that we had last year?
The only change is that there is some language in there that includes if we are to start an early classroom-based teacher prep program. So there's language in there for that.
Could you just explain just a little bit about that, please?
Yes. In statute, we're allowed to train teachers through a classroom-based teacher prep program. And so if we choose to do that or embark on that, there is some language in there so that we can do that.
So it's optional with the district?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Kazi?
So this would be for new teachers that are entering the profession, teachers that are currently in school. Can you clarify that a little bit?
It's for new teachers, so it would be a recruiting tool that we could recruit those that would want to be a teacher that may not have gone through a traditional teacher prep program.
Ms. Thompson? No. Okay. With that, if there are no further comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the teacher contract template as presented.
Move to approve the contract template as presented.
Second?
Okay, it was moved by Ms. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Grissom. Please vote. Well, let's say, all those say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Last, that brings us to the last action item, the psychologist intern position. Dr. Gresham, whoever you are, Dr. Guerin.
Thank you, President Holcomb. We are excited to bring a psychologist intern position. You're going to see innovations in hiring like this in regards to our teacher retention and recruitment efforts. So I applaud HR and Dr. Lomely's office for this. Dr. Lomely?
Thank you, Dr. Guerin. Mr. President, members of the board, cabinet, we are requesting to approve a new position, which is a school psychologist intern. This would allow us to recruit school psychologists at the master's level who are in the process of completing their internship. We can employ them, and they would work under the supervision of one of our school psychologists, and basically do much of the same work that our school psychologists perform. And this would allow us to attract them early in their career.
I saw Ms. Thompson first, and then Ms. Chasse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say this is such a great idea to be able to bring people in who are finishing their training to serve the districts. We get a chance to get a look at how they work with our teams, and then be able to, recruit them into permanent positions. I think this is a really great mechanism, and look forward not just with this mechanism with the psychologist intern position, but also other innovations that we could have with other positions around the district. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Ms. Chasse.
I just wanted to indicate that when I ran a social services nonprofit, we used this model, and we always had excellent candidates in the program. They worked with homeless families, homeless children, and it is, I think, a model that I'm so thrilled we are finally adopting. And I think we will find it to be very successful. Thanks so much for all your work on this.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I just want to comment, this originally was going to be on the consent agenda. I asked for it to be moved off the consent agenda specifically for this conversation. At our last meeting, I don't know if you noticed, there was a person sitting in the back. She was an administrative program that she came and had contacted me about coming to the board meeting to observe. Afterwards, I went and talked to her afterwards, and she was just blown away about our district and that too. The more exposure we can get the district, I think it's helpful in employment. I think it's helpful. I think it's part of us giving back to help train, whether they come to Madison or not. And we've used programs like this in the past. We used to have a program with ASU where we'd have the student teacher and we'd actually hire them in December. And I remember and I'd love to get that type of program back as well, because that gave us upper hand for the same reason. You get an extended opportunity to see how they work within the Madison, community and go forward. And this is, I'm very much in favor of this. And I think we should all be thinking both at the administrative level and on the board, there's other areas where we'd like to do this. I don't see a downside to us doing these type of intern programs, and they could be a very big plus, not only for the people there, but for Madison as well. Okay. Dr. Guerin.
Can I make one more comment, President Holcomb? Governor Hobbs has called that she will have a task force to look at educator retention and recruitment, and we are interested in partnering and applying for that, all about being a part of the solution and volunteering to pilot really great opportunities while keeping the quality of our teachers and educators, to make sure that we keep that quality, but we're also innovative in ways to recruit and retain and have people still be interested in choosing education. So this will be an area of focus you'll see with all of Cabinet and the strategic plan.
Ms. Gresham.
Just a quick comment. I also, actually, I was going to ask too about, I'm glad you brought that up, that we could try this with other positions as well. And just so the public knows, for background, we were having trouble finding psychologists to hire regular full-time. So this is how that came about. So yeah, sounds good to me.
No other comments or questions? I will entertain a motion to approve the psychologist intern position as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Spears, seconded by Ms. Thompson. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. That brings us down to the discussion regarding future meetings. Dr. Guerin.
President Holcomb, members of the board, Cabinet, and guests, it is a busy time of year. This is the time of year that we are still doing the important work every day, but we're also planning for next year at the same time. And our board meetings will reflect this. On February 21st, we're going to ask you to arrive about 4:45 for our fall-winter recognitions in the Center for the Art. So please calendar that. I'm super excited. I haven't been involved in that before. We will have You Make a Difference in Shining Star for MTA in Rose Lane, and we will have the MTA School Showcase. So excited to see what other talent we have coming to the board meeting. We are so excited that Educational Services has been working incredibly hard. Assistant Superintendent Marshall and Jason Pianakowski on the strategic planning update. We are finalizing our key performance indicators to measure the effectiveness of our strategic plan. We spent an hour on that in cabinet today. We're bringing it to our leadership team on Monday for a look. We're also really weighing how many measures we're going to have, because you can spend all your time measuring things instead of doing the work. So we really want to focus on what's important and what can give us the most information, and manage that whole process. So that will be, we're really excited to bring that to you. The other thing Ms. Marshall's team has been doing is working on new literacy requirements. There's a lot of new information out with the science of reading and literacy, and a lot of training requirements coming out for teachers. So instead of just expecting teachers to do that, our services department is being proactive in planning and sending teachers to training and partnering with them. So I just feel like it's such an important topic, and her team will bring a literacy update for us so you can understand all the intricate work we're doing in this area. In March, we will have an instructional coaches update, again by Ms. Marshall's team. As you talked about these additional positions that have been a priority, our instructional coach and teacher mentors have been quite a point of pride. They are so universally respected by our staff. So we will hear what they're doing and how they are preparing this new cadre of teachers that sometimes did student teaching or interns or parts of their semester virtually. So they had that challenging COVID experience that our coaches are helping navigate. We have to make sure that we don't lose teachers in the first 3 to 5 years, that we keep them by preparing them in Madison. So as you can tell, I'm very excited about these updates from Ms. Marshall's team. And then somewhere in there is spring break, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do after that later. Okay.
Any comments or questions about the ongoing calendar? I noticed that on the next meeting, there are no action items. If there are things that we could put on there that, we normally do later, or something that is appropriate, let's take advantage of that, or if you want to go. Also, based upon the conversation we just had about the intern programs, at some point in the calendar, maybe we can get a presentation or even proposal for, other intern opportunities that we may have. I think the sooner we can put that into action, the better.
And President Hogan, we talked in cabinet today about bumping up bringing budget advisory, potentially having a study session on the 28th with the superintendent recommendation for budget in early April. I believe those are the dates we were talking about. So those will be coming a little earlier to you than normal.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So, I will second.
Ms. Chasse moved, Ms. Spears seconded. All those in favor say bye. Bye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Don't leave, time for your photo op.
Oh.
If you need a break, and then photos.
Okay.
I gotta get my.
Oh, your tie.
Go make sure I don't have lipstick on my teeth.
Well, let Scott tie his tie.
Yeah, I'll tie one on.